So the new moon here, that's the moon. Let's call it a new moon. It's going to be in Aries. So we know the new moon is the start of a cycle. And in Aries, it's the start of, I hate to say it, but it is what it is. War, business deals, and risk-taking. But on the 29th, we're also in a solar eclipse, just after the lunar eclipse in Virgo. So this is a life-changing, sudden, life-altering sudden change in these three areas. So war, business, and risk-taking is going to affect the geopolitical arena, but it's also going to have implications within our personal lives. Okay, so the new moon is going to be at 9 degrees of Aries. So there's 3 decans, right? So that's split up into 3, and it's going to be just at the border, 9 degrees. So 9 degrees in this first decan, what I mean by that is the first 10 degrees. The tarot card is the Two of Wands. Right, Two of Wands. The Two of Wands is about planning and about imagination, so just going to give it a wee symbol here. It's a fiery energy. Things get going. Doesn't really look like fire, does it? But so basically, things get started in this energy. I'm going to come back to that because that is quite important, but it doesn't make full sense. Not until we've examined the whole of the mansions technicalities. All right. There's a little wee feather on my microphone. Get rid of that. Fine. So the Two of Wands, fiery energy, planning, imagination, the Kickstarter, right? Aries is a Kickstarter. So that's where we are at for now in the solar eclipse. Kickstarting all of this off. We go deeper, we go higher, we get to an area of the sky where there's a lot of stars, what we call deep fixed stars. And one of them shines brightest. I'll come back to that one. But that area in the sky, in that decan of Aries, is called a moon mansion. Now, for Ibn Arabi, who has delved deep into the lunar mansions from an Islamic perspective, calls these mansions manzils. So the manzil initially was called Al-Farq Al-Thani, which is the lower, this is second bucket, but the lower water spout. I'll come back to what that means. For Ibn Arabi, he named it Jami, okay, which means the gatherer. Name of God, essentially, but I really don't call it that. I call it the name of the angels, which is essentially a God energy. But anyway, Al-Farq Al-Thani, I'm going to concentrate on this one, and then I'm going to come back and discuss Jami. So Al-Farq Al-Thani is essentially, like I said, the second of the water buckets with the lower water spout. So now I'm just going to draw what that looks like. Well, in fact, I'm going to talk about the first water spout so it makes more sense. The first water spout would look something like this. So if that's a bucket and you've got water inside, this is the first water spout, right? So as you empty the bucket, it's going to spill out from the top. And that can be viewed as if having to give someone blessings, right? It's like having a shower of blessings. Now, that's the first one in the previous mansion. In this one, we have a bucket which stays upright, and there's water here, But the way to get rid of it is to basically make a wee hole from the bottom, so everything comes out from there, right? And I'm sure you've seen water tanks like this as well, where you have a little lever, you just turn it and the water starts emptying down the way. Okay, so this is what Al-Farq Al-Thani symbolizes. Essentially, it's, if you think of water, spiritually water is emotions. So we're talking about a significant release of, or emotional release, or draining of, if we think of water as resources, draining of our resources. Right? It's got to empty before it can be refilled. Now, at this point, I'm just going to explain the star as well. The star is Al-Ghanib. Al-Ghanib, the deep fixed star, the one that shines the brightest is Al-Ghanib, and that is all about risks. This star is going to push everybody to take risks, and that's a test from God. No matter what's happening down here, this is going to test us all. Anyway, come back to Al-Farq Al-Thani. There's going to be significant release, emotions. You're going to experience something to do with a drainage of your resources. And that could also be finances. I think it will be. It will be sudden, because we're talking about Al-Ghanib, which is a sudden, pioneering Aries type of energy. And it's quite volatile. We're talking about war, aren't we? Business and risk. So we've got an emotional release, or drain. Let's say drain. Drain of resources. Depletion. Now, we've already seen in the last eclipse, the lunar eclipse a couple of weeks ago, two significant events in the world. We had Donald Trump shut down side of the education in America, and essentially remove funding and lots of jobs losses. That was the eclipse in Virgo, which is all about the day-to-day tasks, the nitty-gritty, the healthcare and the education side. And then you had Keir Starmer in the UK basically get rid of NHS England. So that was typical of lunar eclipses in Virgo, letting go of these areas. Solar eclipse is going to initiate a brand new cycle, but it's going to come with a drainage first, right? So there's going to be a complete renewal. The number 9, sorry, I didn't talk about that, is basically the completion of a cycle and the start of a new one, right? Which ties in with the Two of Wands. Again, I was going to come back to this. The Two of Wands is inspirational energy. If you look at the tarot card which is associated with it, the Two of Wands, put that there. And in this deck, the Sufi deck, it's Two of Staff. But it's the same message. You can see that she's got two staffs, she's holding them on, she's holding on to them, and she's about to plan her next move, right? And in this, which is I think is very symbolic, is in the stars, in the sky, you have these stars which are shimmering. She's not looking at that, but those stars are paving the way here in the bottom. You can see, maybe if you can, that the sand behind her is all smooth and flat. And then you've got this kind of ingrained lines as well, some places, like as if there's a map on the ground that she's drawing out for herself. So she's inspired and she's about to start taking some steps towards her goals, right? That's the Two of Staff, or the Two of Wands. But before that can happen, you got to get rid of the old to bring in the new. And this is what Al-Farq Al-Thani is talking about. Now, that could also mean that we have to let go of outdated investments. Right? We've got to let go of outdated investments. Now, we talked about the mansion being called Jami. Why would Ibn Arabi call this mansion, where you've got the drainage of resources and emotional releases, the bucket getting emptied, why would he call it Jami? which is a word for Jamaat, which means to get together in Arabic, and Jummah as well, which is Friday, where we get together and we pray as Muslims. On a solar eclipse, the 29th of March, the new moon, in other words, this is Eid time, right? This is Eid. That's quite interesting. That's really interesting. So people are going to come together. This is community-based. Community-based investing. Now, that's pretty significant later on when I talk to you about the mansions and some secrets I'm going to delve into. But that's pretty significant. I think there's going to be a massive news that's going to come about, which is going to rock the world, and it's going to lead businesses and governments to come together to create new ways forward, right? So there's going to be massive change. Now, if I just take this forward and look at Al-Ghanib, right? To understand Al-Ghanib, we have to understand this mansion, Jami and Al-Farqatani and Al-Ghanib, they're all together. To understand this, we have to look at the ruling planets in this mansion. The ruling planets in this mansion are of Mars and Mercury. And Mercury is retrograde. So when you put these two together in the traditional sense in the lunar mansions, this together is loss and danger of obstacles, right? Let me just write that down. Loss, we've already talked about that here, loss and danger, specifically of obstacles, okay? But remember, Mercury is retrograde, and so communication, this is really big, communication is going to be off. So whilst we're trying to take risks and create new paths for finances, banks and the likes are all going to have problems with communication. So for you, that means don't take risks. Wait until this energy is cleared. Give it like about a month or two. Give the Fed and the Bank of England a chance to start reacting. They're going to be slow in reacting. I'll tell you why. Because Mercury going backwards is actually going to go and meet, well, it starts at 0 degrees Aries, right? So it's 0 degrees Aries and it's moving into Pisces. And as it does that, it's going to pass Neptune. So it's going to pass Neptune, which is very foggy and illusionary. So it's not going to be clear. And itself is Mercury retrograde, so it's going to be double whammy of confusion. It's going to conjunct to the North Node, or Rahu, which is not a good energy either. Okay, that again creates a lot of confusion in the market. So this is market confusion. And then we have, as it's doing this, it's trying to catch Venus, which is retro, it's not going to get there. And it's trying to get to Saturn, but it's not going to get there. But Saturn is this disciplinarian energy of all of this. So all of this is going to be held down, right? So we're going to have people taking risks, governments taking risks, you're taking risks, but that's a test. Saturn is there to help you, to ground your thinking, whilst all of this is really foggy and airy. But this means that we're going towards a different type of investing, right? Because of Saturn, we're going towards a sort of a ethical-based investing. So Neptune is very spiritual. So ethical investing, thanks to Saturn's presence in Pisces. And with Mercury creating all this confusion, we need to see transparency in banking. This is where it's moving to. And you've already seen Trump start to create havoc, right? With Bitcoin reserves, and that's going to probably change the way banks do their business, create their own coins and back it with Bitcoin and whatever that is. We're going to see how that transpires anyway. Right. Now, this confusion and this fogginess, this market correction that's essentially going to occur during these time of emotional drain and resources is going to cause a type of flash crash. Let me put it down here. It's a flash crash, right? Really fiery energy, flash crash. So we've already seen the dip in the lunar eclipse, thanks to Trump, right? But it's starting to jump back. There's going to be another dip, just like we had 2 weeks ago. And it's going to be bigger, all right? There's going to be loss. So whereas we had our markets do this, boom, and now it started to come up, I think it's going to go boom, really down. And then I think it's going to come up again, right? There's people talking about recession, making you think, to get fearful, get scared, we're going to get into a recession. It's a recession type effect, but it's not a proper recession. We have Jupiter, right? We have Jupiter, which is sextiling the North Node. Sorry, it's sextiling the solar eclipse. So Jupiter sextile is going to bring this energy back up again in terms of financial markets. It's just going to be a correction, but it's going to be a major correction. So I don't think there's a recession coming straight away. I think that's going to happen, but I don't think this energy is going to cause it. Now, we talked about emotional release, drainage of resources. We talked about war, right? Why war? So whilst all this is happening, a drainage of resources, we have to think, why is this going to suddenly happen? There's going to be a trigger that's going to cause this. Now, if I take this out here, the reason that I'm saying there's going to be more so war that initiates this, and when I say war, I have to be careful, I don't really mean war, but Neptune is going into Aries, and that's a massive change. It's a very long-term thing, something that comes about every 100 or so, 200 years. So no one's ever lived in the world today to experience Neptune in Aries. And Neptune in Aries is really going to cause confusion in the world of war, business and risk-taking. It's going to shape the next 15 years, especially. So with Neptune in Aries, we also have a coming. So Neptune in Aries is the next day. That's the day after the solar eclipse. And then we've coming a few days later, Mars, April the 11th, Mars is going to face off with Pluto. And when Mars faces off with Pluto, that's basically war posturing, right? So I don't say war, I say there's going to be war posturing, which is going to cause this energy here. And the way things are going at the moment, China is strengthening itself. It's flexing its biceps against Taiwan, thanks to Taiwan, or TSCM, the semiconductor factories or manufacturer is making deals with America. And so that obviously threatens China's attempts to catch up. Now, it's going to be difficult for China to catch up thanks to Moore's Law. If you know what Moore's Law means, it's every 2 years you have a significant change in your technology. But that, if you want to know what that is, I can talk about that in another video. That's basically the Mars cycle, right? Every 2 years Mars changes. But anyway, this to me indicates war posturing by China. Right? And that does bring America back into it, which then causes all this nonsense, right? Okay. Now, coming back to the deep fixed star Alganib and this, the stars amongst it, if you look into this area here, you'll find out that these stars are in the region of the sky that we call Andromeda. And the Stars, when they align them, when they draw lines together, they form the shape of this horse with wings called Pegasus. Right. Now, the story of Pegasus is about taking risks and having experienced loss, and through that loss becoming liberated so that you're able to start a new journey. That's the energy of this mansion. Okay, so whilst there is all this tension and, okay, our investments are going down, but we're going to end up investing in some new things which are going to be sustainable for the long term. The astrology up until now can be interpreted by anybody, right? Anybody can tell you about the new moon in Aries and the solar eclipse, a tarot card associated. You might hear about tarot readings that go into other energies. But essentially what they're trying to read is this energy up here, the deep fixed star, the mansions. You know, look at this, the transits. They can talk about all this stuff, but what they don't do is what Ibn Arabi did. And that is to go beyond the firmament, right? To figure out the source of all of this. Now, the energy which sources all of this, through which all this is basically derived, is what we call Al-Huruf numerology and Ibn Arabi's letterology, right? Now, for the Ibn Arabi letterology, we're talking about the letter Meme. Okay? And for the Al-Huruf numerology, we're talking about number 40. So let me break this down when it comes to the secrets that we get from the moon mansions. You're only going to get this kind of information from this channel, by the way. No one else is going to break this down regularly to give you the juice. But let me explain, what is a letter Meme all about? What does that stand for? Interestingly, it stands for water. Now, in the financial world, that basically means liquidity. Or the flow of assets. And it's also, water is also inspirations and ideas that are formed in the head but not actually realized yet. So emotions will cause or lead to decision making, which causes then a market correction, which we've already talked about, liquidation, which we're talking about now, a restructuring thanks to Saturn and Pisces, and water likes to merge together, so we're talking about mergers. And that's really interesting because we already said that Jami is about people coming together. So in other words, resources are going to come together to get us out of this energy as Jupiter sextiles the eclipse. But what about the numerology? The number 40. Okay, the number 40 is the traditional number of days of fasting, 40 days and 40 nights. It used to be prophetically. And of course in Ramadan we don't do 40 days. It's more like 28 or 30 days with the moon cycle. But 40 days was the traditional. What happens after you fast? You go through, first of all, a time of patience, where you have to lose some qualities. And in terms of Ramadan, it's about losing greed. And once you've done that, you then are rewarded with a renewal, right? Your body's renewed, your mind is renewed. This is ethical, a time of ethical investing. Okay, bring it together with the finances. Ethical investing, or what I would say now, if I say ethical, does that look like an A? Yep, ethical investing. Ethical investing or fairer banking. Put it that way. Put it simpler, it's basically fairer banking. Now, in terms of stocks, if we're talking about ethical investing, you're looking at the healthcare fields, and you're looking at renewable energies. So what does this mean for stocks? If you are going to be investing into stocks at this point in time, which I do not advise, I mean, this isn't financial advice anyway, but an understanding of what the astrology is telling us. What this means is that there's probably going to be good energy for companies which are involved in big pharma. So for example, only for example, we're talking about Moderna. And this is for long-term growth, not some short-term over the next day trades. We're talking about Pfizer, of course. We're talking about maybe a company like Teladoc, where if there is a new disease that comes out and we have to stay at home again, then telecommunication can take off big time. We're talking about, in terms of technology, if you really want to know, Nvidia, of course, with TSMC getting the whack potentially. And in terms of, okay, so for in terms of renewable intensive energies, we can have Tesla. Okay, we can say Tesla, which is not going through a good time right now, but in the future it can do. And there's another one called Brookfield. Brookfield is one of the big ones when it comes to, probably the biggest in terms of renewable energies, right? If you're looking at funds, and I would say the iShares in the ESG iShares, so iShares would be all this talk of sustainability, sustainable goals, 2030, all that stuff. But one secret one that I can give to you now, which is really connected to the water of meme, is a company called Xylem. Now Xylem is interesting because it's the only one out of all these companies that I've listed that's directly involved in water resource investments or industry. And so if you look at the astrology of the birth chart of Xylem, you and I, we all have a birth chart where the planets are the lights are basically, I don't call them planets, planetary lights were at certain positions in the sky. For Xylem's birth chart, Jupiter, the Jupiter that's basically the energy which enhances everything it touches, was in Taurus, which is the financial house, if you like. So to help enhance the financial house, the solar eclipse now is going to trine Jupiter, Xylem's Jupiter, right? So we're getting a trine of Jupiter in Xylem's birth chart, which means that Xylem is going to have to restructure itself. You see all this energy here, let go of outdated ways and structure itself to become more resourceful and economic and sustainable, so that its Jupiter can manifest itself for the long-term growth. So you see how the energy of the mansions can tell you so much about life generally. And this is going to all occur in the next 2 weeks in our individual lives, personal lives, relationships, and whatever else it happens to be in your birth chart. But it's also affecting stocks and financial markets and can help you decide what you're going to do. Now, if a lot of you are sitting there thinking, I'm going to put my money in as these stocks are dipping after the lunar eclipse, that's not a good idea, because here we know, or we can see, another crash coming. But it's also not so bad that we're swinging the other way, calling it a massive recession and having to, see no growth for months and months. No, there's going to be growth and there's going to be loss. There's just going to be a yo-yo kind of an effect for the rest of the year, I think. But definitely for now, but that information is derived from the Munzils or the Moon Mansions. I hope you enjoyed this one. Come back for the next video. I'll decide whether it's a new moon or whether it's a full moon, depending on the astrology and what's happening and the information that I get from the mansions. Have a good one.